I would say most of the time you're bound to sell out. No, you're bound to sell out because at the end of the day you need to eat.
Yeah. So what extent are you willing to sell out?
Yeah. I think you just need to set your ceiling at a very early stage so that when that happens, you're like, okay, this is where I stop.
Hi, this is Punk Mbedzi, and welcome to Music and Other Stuff, where we talk about everything music related and other things that you need to know about music. And on today's episode, I'm joined by the label boss, although he doesn't like the title, to Selville Records, Mr. Kgodisho Mowa. Zito Mowa, as some people know him. And a lot of label owners, they have their own why, to why they start a record label, and why they do it. What is your why?
My why was more of like an experience that like drove me into that direction of starting my own label. As Zito Mowa, they see your music, people like you, and they reach out.
Yeah.
Like, hey, listen to this, listen to that, and then from there, me like forwarding those inboxes that I get from people I know that have labels, and those people not really liking it or not taking any action to that. So for me, I was like, okay, cool. So I get these many inboxes with good music. The artists might not be known, so why not start my own thing and then just push them? And then that's where that came from. And also, I think for me, it was just also creating a platform for myself, especially with the kind of music that I make. It's like very underground and all this kind of stuff. So so it's not easy to send a demo and then it's approved all the time. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna create my own thing. So for me, my why is just creating a platform for me and other artists who might want to showcase. So for me, like my main intention and purpose for it was to be almost like a step ladder to wherever they want to go. Like my intention was not for artists to stay with me. My intention was like, hey, here's someone that you should know, and then other people who are known or who can push them further can take them from there.
That's amazing, man. And I like the fact that you mentioned, it just leads me to the following question where you said you've been making music and some people don't receive it well and everything, But at the end of the day, besides being a label boss, you're also a music producer and a DJ. So I can imagine it's challenging. Then how do you find the balance of pushing your own personal brand and making sure you're also pushing the label and like making like are the two interdependent? Like the more Zito Mowa grows, does that mean the label is going to grow, or is it possible for your label to be bigger than you as an artist? Is that the goal?
So for me, I've never looked at them like that, but I think what I've always been aware of is if me as Zito Mowa grows, the more doors I can open for my own label, right? But if the label grows more than Zito Mowa, of course, some of the things I want to open to some level. So I think to some level they are definitely like they coexist. So, but I don't think me as Zito Mowa should depend on how my label does. For me, the label should always be priority because I'm dealing with other people's art. And they sit down and they put passion in these things. So I can't flop on that part.
So the strategy are basically different.
So on Zito Mowa I can be chilled and go with my own creative process, but with the label I must push for other people's music to go out and all this kind of stuff.
Does that put a bit of a risk, like you're mentioning, like the more Zito Mowa grows, you can open more doors, but does that put risk on the artists that you bring into the label if brand Zito Mowa, like something goes wrong, God forbid, something goes wrong with your brand, your personal brand? Do you think that can overflow, into your label right now and then affect them as well?
Definitely, especially now we're living in a space of cancel culture, right? So you do one thing, it affects. It's like a ripple effect. It affects everything else. Right. So I think it definitely does, because at the end of the day, I'm still the face of it, right? So if Zito Mowa does something, people are not going to want to associate themselves with anything that has to do with me. So they are definitely interlinked in any way.
So there's a level of risk in doing this, putting yourself out there. And I've also noticed that a lot of artists, like one of the biggest challenges they face is, having the adequate resources available to them, if they want to go independent, or like a lot of people have this mentality, I want to go independent, and they don't know, like, you need to have access to so much, you need to have so much available to you to make the right decisions, For you personally, like, what are some of the sacrifices you needed to make in order to be able to start? I don't want to say establish and make a big brand, but just say, make sure that you're releasing and pushing the artists.
For me, I think the most important thing for me was connections, like human capital.
Yeah.
Like making sure that I know a few people who I can go to and ask questions, like yourself, Kid Funk, Sinbad, like these are just some of the people that I can just call and say, hey, I don't understand what publishing means. What does that mean? And then they can explain it to me. So I would say having those connections definitely helps, because you can't just, there's this term that they like using, that you just spray and pray. Like, I can't just put things out and hope people will find them.
Just
right?
wing
I
it.
have to, I have to push it. I have to say, hey, so and so, here's cool music. I think it would be great for your radio show. So I have to do those kind of things to just make sure that I push. So I would say it's not necessarily sacrifices, but it's just like some necessary work that I had to put in.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like a lot of guys now, they have this, especially with smaller indie labels, they like saying, they want to be distinguished from a major label. They don't like how major labels do things or certain things, But at the end of the day, as an independent label, you want to grow.
Yeah.
So is the point to grow and compete with a major, or is the point to be so distinguished? Like, I'm just trying to find out, like, what, how do you not make those things overlap, and you find yourself saying, I don't like this, I don't like how they do the things, but I'll grow and want to be like them. At the end of the day, you become like what you're running away from. How do you find the balance?
Yeah, man, it's tricky. It's tricky because sometimes you're like, if I do this, it will sell and I'll be able to pay this person royalties. Right?
Yeah.
But then the other side, you're like, but if I do this, it might tarnish the purity of the art. So I think as much as I respect purists, sometimes it blocks us from getting such and such. Because I don't think being a big label is a problem. I think changing the quality of what you release is a problem.
Sure.
Because it might be a big label and people respect you because they know that on Friday you drop fire every time. But then when you're a big label and you become a big label because you've changed the sound and the quality, people don't respect it anymore. And then I think that's where the problem comes in, because then we don't have the same expectations anymore. We're just looking for what sells. And I think me being in both shoes of an artist and someone who owns a label, I kind of see it from both sides, because at the end of the day, for some people, this is their 9 to 5, their label. So they have to put food on the table. So they're like, I can't let this opportunity pass by. So I would say most of the time you're bound to sell out. You're bound to sell out because at the end of the day, you need to eat.
So what extent are you willing to sell out?
I think you just need to set your ceiling at a very early stage, so that when that happens, you're like, okay, this is where I stop. Because the moment you don't set those boundaries, you're going to find yourself in situations where you were one thing that people knew you from, and then you just change with whatever wave that comes in. So I think everybody has their own objective, and their objectives might not be what we see in them. So of course we're going to say something, people are bound to say anything, but I think just setting your own objective to say, okay, I want to be here, and this is how I'm going to do it, and these are some of the people that I need to connect with, that helps a lot. So for me, I don't feel like there's any right or wrong. I just feel like things come in and they go out. So
and speaking about like that, there's like, we're in that generation where like social media, I don't think there's ever been a generation that's been impacted so much by social media. The decision making is impacted by social media. This is going to live on a social media platform. but there is something that we've noticed on social media as well. It's trends, you know.
Yeah.
So how do trends affect an independent label like yourself? How do trends impact how your release strategy basically then saying, okay, obviously when you started the label, you had a goal, you say, I want my sound to be this, I want it to be like, but how do trends do affect it, but how do they affect you, you know, as Selville Records as well?
For me, I would say like, I'm more affected by what I receive as demos than what's on social media, because I can hear something that I might have said, I'm only going to release this kind of music, and then I receive a demo and I'm like, it's so good, but it doesn't align with what I wanted to release. Like, it's that situation that like, okay, do I make an exception? But I think having some sort of umbrella that, okay, I'm only going to do deep house, and then there's like other subgenres and that one, and then you can move around a little bit, or you can just say I'm going to release good music in all genres, and then now you have a broader spectrum to play around in. So I would say like just defining the kind of music that you want to release is important. And then what in terms of trends and all the stuff, I think you should support trends, but you should also just not take in everything.
Right? Just quick to consume. Yeah.
One thing that I like doing is I would receive a demo and I'm like, this is good, but it fits more to Stay True or than mine. So I'll say, hey, Kid Funk, here's something I think it would fit in more into your label.
Actually,
so I think doing that, it also just creates some sort of good reputation for yourself as well.
Sure.
Because you're not just stingy with it, closing in for that kid who just sent you a good demo.
Yeah.
You know, and so I do that sometimes.
And you might find that it blows up even better because of what that other labels' strategies are and what they can do with the music.
Yeah.
100%. And I'm guessing you've also faced like a few challenges, you know.
Yeah.
And it's challenges that not a lot of people know.
Yeah.
Once they like before they're inside.
Yeah.
They only find out once they're inside. Like, being independent is not what I thought. What are some of the challenges that you faced from being an independent label owner?
Yeah. For me, the challenges is having lots of artists and lots of release under your belt that are gonna come out, and you need to remember and keep track of when they're released and all this kind of stuff. And okay, I need to market this 2 weeks prior or something like that. So for me, doing all that on my own, and on top of that, being a designer, I have to design first and then put it this, and then there's so many steps to do that. For me, that like proved to be kind of like a heavy admin on my side. But I think doing things like way before times kind of gives you enough time to relax and do it properly. But one of the challenges is just the admin of it.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing. Like everyone that I've been speaking to, speaks about the lack of the ability to, you know, like creative artists, like they just want to be free. Like I just want my mind to play well. But I think admin just narrows you down because music copyright is music copyright. You can't say music copyright is a remix of what. You know, you can't make your own version of it. 100%. It's only one version of it. So I think that's what a lot of people struggle with.
Definitely.
In that sense, you know.
So comes heavy on that. And then the other thing for me that I'm realizing now is something would get released, right?
Yeah.
And Selville wouldn't get an inbox, right, saying this and this. No, Zito Mowa would get an inbox and saying, bro, that's my song.
Sure.
Right? And now someone will post and say Zito Mowa's label, blah, 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 blah. Right? And so now something that had nothing to do with affects me. Because I've got this song from this person. They use the same sample pack, whatever the case might be. And then someone says, no, that's my song. And now I have to deal with it behind closed scenes. It doesn't go outside.
How do you deal with something like that? Like, how do you just sit everyone together and be like, okay, there's...
That happened to me twice. It happened to me twice. The first one was like my first release on the compilation. Like people want to pop and they send me a demo and I was like, okay, this is good. I'll release it. And once I released it, you sleep and then the next day, so many notifications. Then I see that my name is there, my label is there, and then there's this artist. Then I get the story from one artist, they say this, and I got the story from one artist and they say this. But I think having those kind of conversations, you can see that one of them was wrong. And most of them people who are wrong were people who actually sent me the music, right?
Aish.
So, which is sad because as an artist, I understand how that works. So I have to deal with that and see how I can. Do they want compensation? Do they want me to take it down? Like those kind of things. So there's no way of dealing with it, but I think the contract always saves me. Yeah, because in the contract, I'm like, all the materials is for the artist. Right?
Yeah.
So that kind of saves me, even though I'll always get drag either way. But legally, the contract always saves me.
Yeah. Speaking of contracts, man, you just made me think of something. Like, do you prefer, like, you being like an independent, you said the purpose of your why was you wanted music to be released that is unseen or unheard or anything like that,
Yeah.
Do you think that ultimately you want the people that you release under you, do you want them to have their own Selville in a way? Or do you want to sign them? Is the goal to sign them and help nurture them and grow them and, under your wing?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have different strategies. Some people would say, like, I see this talent. I want to sign him. I want to grow him. But some people would be like, yo, I see a talent, but you can do so much more on your own. Let me just give you the tools, So in your experience, what's the best approach?
For me, like, I haven't really like templatized it. It's just on what the person want. Like, for example, I've released some music from Buddy Nice, and he has his own label, right?
That's dope.
And can't remember if it existed before mine or after mine, but I don't know. So, and then there's people who are not really interested in that. They just want to release music and just focus on themselves. But I would say if you think you can do it, do it. Right? Because I feel like we don't learn anything by holding back. Rather, touch the stove so it can burn you, and then you know that's hot.
Yeah.
So for me, I'd say if you feel like you're into that, do it.
Yeah.
But if you feel like it's not your thing, don't do it. So so it's just a matter of like personal preference more than anything. I wouldn't force an artist to do anything. But I would say if you want to be more in control of your own material, definitely do it.
No, I think that's dope. And we're just also chatting about this earlier on, like the access to information on, the internet and how that overwhelms a lot of artists, And you've had your label for just over a year, if I'm not mistaken, And for someone who wants to just start, like, what would you let them know, like they just want to go the independent route? And personally, I'm one for, I won't tell someone to say, hey, go independent or hey, whatever, what works for you. It's not a black and white thing. Some people, it works for them. But in our experience, we've seen that just know what you're doing. Like, just know what you're getting yourself into. That's what matters,
100%.
But with your experience, you've been running a label, you've released other people's music and all that. What advice would you give someone who wants to do the same and have their own model of what you have?
I think for me, what helped me is finding your why. Like the first question you asked me, that's really important. Right? That's really, really important, because without answering that question, and then you're gonna fall into so many things, and it's gonna go back into like politics and all this kind of stuff. So I think definitely find your why. Why do you want to do it? Do you want to do it because you want to own your own music? Or do you want to put other people on spotlight or what? Like, why do you want to do it? And on top of that, I think just understanding that you're going to have to work 10 times harder than you're doing as an artist, because now you're responsible for other people. So I think putting in that work, and for me, I find that it has been even a little bit harder because I'm very antisocial. So I need to go out and meet these people and get their emails so I can send them promos. But I don't do that a lot because I might be sitting at home saying, okay, from Friday I'm gonna go out, and then Friday comes, my anxiety is like, nah, bro, sit home and watch Friends. So I think just be prepared to get out of the comfort zone, right? And getting out of the comfort zone is always a good thing, right? So I would say do it. Be prepared to put in the work, and and then I think from there, build relationships also.
Networking is like one of the most important things. And I also like what you said that, you found yourself, you needed to work 10 times more.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people aren't aware of. Like, hey, this thing, it's work. Like, it's not just, owning my masters. You're independent. You're, no one can, it's work. It's like,
and people like using that word, man. They don't know what that means.
Like, they don't even know what that means, and like, it's so much work. And I think the more we see music as also a business, and the more we respect it as a business, the more other people can do that as well. Because I think the biggest challenge we're having, especially in the country, in South Africa right now, is that when, like, for example, if government makes any regulations or whatever, like, music is put on the back burner because they don't regard it as a business. But I think also the people in the industry, if they also start seeing music as like a business, I have to treat it as a business. When I'm at a gig, I'm working. I'm not partying. I'm not I'm there to work. I'm contracted for a certain time. I have to fulfill my obligations.
Definitely.
It helps. Even with being independent, you need to like put in the work. So I don't know, man. What can we expect? Like, there's a lot you've released, but there's more having. What can we expect from your label going forward?
There's definitely a lot of music, especially October, November. I received a lot of demos, right? And it seems like I've received a lot of demos from people who come from one label, right? And I'm really excited about that, because there's kids out there who are really talented.
Sure. Right? That's dope.
Like, really like, I'll be listening to some of these demos, I'm like, what?
Like, how don't they know you?
So there's a lot of music coming in, spanning probably until June, July next year.
Sure.
So I'm really excited about that. There's these cool artists called LaFour, the Real MK, Short Bass. There's Trevor G, and there's another one called Wapo, who just does classic house. Like, feel like I'm listening to the also Candy compilations. So I'm really excited to release that kind of music and just see how people take it in.
That's amazing.
So there's a lot coming in.
No, man, that's amazing. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to supporting. In whatever way I can support, and just hoping that all these goals that you have, they are fulfilled, and these artists get the breakthrough that they need and want. And I think you're also doing like what you're doing is very dope, in a sense that you are helping, like you're saying, a lot of the artists you've never heard of them. It's a platform, and at the end of the day, they're also learning and seeing, this is how I do stuff, and you have that, you're not locking them in a way. So I think I really commend that, and I really respect that.
100%. And I think the one thing that I've realized why I receive so many demos is, and the one thing that I've been getting consistently is just having that personal experience. Like, you're not talking to me that as if I'm a business transaction. You're talking to me like I'm a human being. Right? So, and I think people are appreciating that more and more. That's why even like those, that's why even on Instagram, people are following more genuine people. Right? Because I think people are just want to be treated like human.
They want the human, like they want the organic thing.
Definitely. So I think that helps a lot.
No, man.
That helps a lot.
Thank you so much for joining me.
No way.
And we will catch up next time. Thank you so much for tuning in on this episode of music and other stuff. See you on the next one.